The first thing Elena Grant noticed wasn't her husband's hand on the model's wrist, or the trailing laugh that used to belong to her. It was the way the maître d' dropped his eyes when he saw her, like grief, like warning. The chandelier warmed the room with an amber glow that should have felt romantic, but Elena's baby kicked as if to say, "Run." Adrian leaned in, the model's glossy mouth parted, and the flash from a phone camera stung. Elena didn't make a scene. She folded the ultrasound photo in her palm, turned, and walked into a January night that would change every name she answered to. On paper, Elena and Adrian made sense. He was Adrian Grant, founder and CEO of Valiant Labs, a Seattle biotech company whose stock price spiked whenever he gave a keynote in a Navy suit. She was an operations manager at a non-profit that fit adaptive equipment for stroke survivors. Their dinner parties were tidy, their table settings were Pinterest perfect, and their arguments were mostly calendar-based. "You're home late," Elena said the week before the restaurant. The duplex windows reflected the Burke-Gilman Trail, cyclists cutting past their wall of floor-to-ceiling glass like quick thoughts. Adrian set his laptop bag down too carefully. "Merger schedules are brutal. You said we'd go over the birth plan together." He kissed her forehead. "Send me the doc. I want to make sure we're covered if anything complicated happens." "Elena?" she corrected, soft but firm. "Not covered. Present." He gave her a tired smile. "Present, right?" His phone buzzed. He glanced down like it was a person who needed him more. Elena didn't doubt he loved her. She doubted whether he remembered how to show it without treating love like a meeting he could move to Friday. She was 32, 6 months pregnant, and forever doing the calculus of how much to ask for before being labeled demanding. After a complicated miscarriage 2 years earlier, she learned to say, "What time works for you to tell me how you feel?" When her friend Maya, who happened to be an attorney with a soft spot for blunt truth, stopped by with a bag of lemon scones, Elena let her in and sank into the couch. "You look like last season's couch pillow," Maya said. "Still useful, but underfluffed." "Charming." "What's wrong?" Elena held the scone like something fragile. "He keeps saying everything's temporary. But I'm starting to think the parts that feel temporary are me." Maya's eyes softened. "Is there someone else?" "No." Elena let the word hang there, thin and hopeful. "No, I don't think so. He's in love with the company. That's all." "Then say what you need," Maya said. "Preferably when he's not trying to rewire the health sector in a single email." Elena pressed her hand to her belly, feeling a small roll beneath her palm, a tidal shift no one else could feel. "I'll try tonight. He said he'd be home by 9. At 11, when she turned off the lamp, Seattle gleamed outside like a promise she no longer trusted. Beautiful, distant, loud. Adrian came in at 12:30, the smell of rain and a hotel bar clinging to his suit. She pretended to be asleep and wondered when pretending became their shared language. The next morning, she found a reservation confirmation on the counter. The Paragon, Friday at 7. A bright note in Adrian's tight handwriting. Date night. Just us. She set her coffee down and exhaled. She believed in second chances, like she believed in prenatal vitamins. Daily, faithfully, even if some days tasted like chalk. The Paragon was all muted elegance and flattering light. Couples leaned toward each other as if the room were made of secrets. When the hostess asked for her name, Elena lifted her chin. "Grant." "I'm a little early." "Of course," the hostess said, mouth pressurized with sincerity. "Your table's almost ready." Almost felt like a verb in that moment. Something one could do for a lifetime. A gust of laughter lifted from the bar, and Elena's eyes moved on their own. Adrian was there in a navy suit that had earned its own line item in their household budget. Beside him, a woman with hair like a shampoo commercial rested her wrist in his hand. Sloane Mercer. The face was familiar. Billboards, a watch campaign, a strut that could rebrand sidewalks. The kiss wasn't cinematic. It was brief, a flicker. But there's a tone of betrayal that hums in the body. The note rang, and Elena knew. A phone camera clicked. Another. The maitre d' sucked in a breath. Elena watched 2 seconds in which her marriage broke quietly. It wasn't melodramatic. It was ordinary. That made it worse. She turned and walked out. No storm, no shattered glass, just the air and the sound of her own shoes on the sidewalk. She didn't drive home. She drove to the office where she kept things that mattered most, a small box that held the ultrasound photo and the letter she'd started writing 8 weeks earlier after Adrian missed the anatomy scan. It had been theoretical then, a practice drill she promised herself not to need. Now she sat at her desk, finished it, folded it into a white envelope, addressed it in her neat, clean hand. Adrian. At home, she placed the letter against the blue ceramic fruit bowl they'd bought in Leavenworth because it reminded them of a cloudless day. She took what she needed: prenatal vitamins, a pair of leggings, the sweater that made strangers say, "Good color on you." She skimmed the nursery, its paint sample card still taped to the wall. Icy mint, silvery moon, gentle wheat. She locked the door and left the key under the terracotta pot they used for basil. The ferry to Port Townsend was a slow, forgiving thing, its rhythm old, dependable. Elena stood at the railing, cold cutting her face, and watched the city bleed into the fog. Somewhere, a notification pinged. She silenced her phone. "First time to the peninsula?" asked a woman in a weatherproof jacket, hair braided grey and practical. "You're either escape or adventure. People don't come for middle ground." "Escape," Elena said. "Good choice," the woman said, and handed her a thermos cup. "Ruth, you look like someone who needs hot tea and 3 days of bad cell service." At the Port Townsend landing, Ruth scribbled an address on a grocery receipt. "I rent a small carriage house, month to month. Nothing fancy. Quiet. You can hear birds decide things in the morning." Elena wanted quiet. She wanted birds making small, certain decisions. 2 hours later, she set her bag down on a braided rug in a room with low ceilings, white curtains, and a couch that had the good manners to sag politely. She plugged her phone into an outlet and watched the screen burst with messages. She didn't open them. She lay down, side sleeping like her midwife recommended, and pressed the ultrasound photo to her heart. Back in Seattle, Adrian read the letter 3 times, then sat on the kitchen floor like furniture. His hands shook in a way the boardroom never permitted. "Adrian, I saw you at the Paragon tonight. There were cameras. You held her hand like you were trying to keep a small bird from flying away. I won't scream at you. I won't break the good china. But I won't stay here like a piece of sunlight pinned to a wall. I'm taking space. The baby and I are safe. When you're ready to talk without managing me, without managing the narrative, call Maya. She'll know how to reach me if I want to be reached. Please don't look for me to fix your damage control. Look for me when you remember how to show up." Adrian called, texted, FaceTimed, the rings stacked into a chorus of unanswered need. He dialed Maya. She didn't pick up either. He knew the restaurant would hit the gossip blogs by morning. He also knew the worst part of all this wasn't public. It was private. The look he didn't get to see. The way Eleanor had stood or fallen or flown. He closed his eyes. The chandelier's reflection still trembled in his mind. Adrian's mother, Vivian Grant, had the calm that only comes from never wondering if you'll be obeyed. She sat at the breakfast bar in a winter white coat, a small pearl standing in for a necklace of apologies she would never give. "The optics are survivable," she said, stirring a spoon in an empty cup. My wife is gone, Adrian said. She's 6 months pregnant and gone. You mean she didn't answer her phone for 12 hours? He exhaled, a sound like a door closing. I don't have time for your definitions. You always have time for mine. Vivian glanced at his tie. Straighten. You're going on camera at 10. We'll pivot to privacy language. Ask for respect for your family. Express regret for speculation, and let it pass. I kissed someone who wasn't my wife, he said, tasting the words as if they were someone else's. You were seen flirting with a model, she replied smoothly. It happened at a public place. It's already happened. What we do now is set the frame before someone else does. She tapped her phone. A prepared statement winked on screen. Read this. Then get dressed. Adrian wanted to throw the phone, or himself, into a nearby river. The boy inside him, the one who built houses out of shoeboxes, knew better. Smashing didn't fix anything. He dialed a number no publicist knew. Maya, he said when she picked up. Please. Maya's voice walked a careful line between law and love. Elena is safe. She asked me to be her gate. I need to see her. You need to take responsibility without making her safety about you, Maya said. For once. I'm sorry. Say that to her when she's ready. The news cycle did what it does. It created a narrative. The photos. A grainy, amber-lit kiss. The headlines. Biotech king spotted with model Sloane Mercer at the Paragon. Where's his pregnant wife? The takes. Louder than truth. Smoother than grief. A pundit said in a bright voice that Elena was lucky to have options. Another said she should work harder to keep her man. Adrian endured a brief on-camera statement. My marriage is private, he said. My focus is on my family. Vivian's eyes approved. The board's emails approved. The stock shrugged and carried on. At 10 that night, Adrian sat on the edge of a bed that looked like it belonged to someone efficient. He scrolled Sloane's Instagram. She had posted nothing. He texted her. We need to talk. Sloane replied. Meet me where we met. Noon. Tomorrow. The rooftop garden at the Valiant building was meant to soften the cityscape. It made him feel small. Sloane arrived in a beige coat. No entourage, no sunglasses. Up close, she looked less like advertising and more like a person who'd been crying carefully. I'm not good at this, she said. The part where I explain why I did something ugly. Try. Sloane studied the skyline. Your mother. She approached me after a campaign. She knows everyone. She said Valiant was the future, that you couldn't afford to look boring before the FDA announcement. She offered a contract, 2 or 3 public dates, strategic visibility, the story that you're vibrant, irresistible. Her words, not mine. Adrian felt the familiar nausea of corporate logic dressed as concern. She told you to kiss me? No, she said you'd probably do it yourself eventually. Sloane swallowed. I said no at first. Then my brother's leukemia worsened. Your mother's people covered a trial drug the insurance wouldn't. She said I wasn't selling myself. I was buying Caleb time. She finally met his eyes. I'm not proud of any of it. But tell me you've never used money to make something you wanted easier. Silence cracked between them. He had. He did. He hated the mirror she held up. Does Elena know? I tried to reach her, Sloane said. She blocked me. Maya told me to leave her alone. Do you have proof? He asked. Contracts. Messages. Sloane nodded, coat rustling. I kept everything. He imagined walking into Vivian's house and dropping a stack of prints on her marble countertop. He pictured their arguments. Surgical, practiced, drawing blood without raising voices. He pictured Elena as something other than a variable he could address. I need to find my wife, he said, startling himself by using the present tense like a vow. Sloane looked relieved and wrecked in equal measure. "Find her and tell her I'm sorry. Tell her the boy—" She hesitated. "Your baby. I hope he—" Sloane shook her head. "Forget it. I don't get to hope for anything. You get to be human," Adrian said quietly. She half laughed. "That's not what we were contracted for. Elena's days in Port Townsend started the same way, by listening to a silence that belonged to a place that didn't know her. The carriage house had a stove, older than her marriage, and a kettle that made small, encouraging noises. She logged on to a local midwife's website. The clinic was 2 streets over, tucked between a bakery and a bookstore, whose owner watched her as if she were a page that had blown out of a novel. The midwife, Dr. Bethany Cole, was one of those women who could braid calm into every appointment. "We'll set up weekly prenatal checks for now," she said, hands warm around Eleanor's wrist. "You're carrying the weight of a move, sweetheart." "That counts." "I haven't moved," Elena said, surprised at the defensiveness. "I left." "Leaving is the beginning of a move," Dr. Cole replied. "You'll move your body, your mind, your expectations. It will be work. We'll do it slow." Ruth, who owned the carriage house and ran the bookstore with opinions for sale, knocked one afternoon with a bag of clementines and a check-in that felt like a rescue. "I've been a wife twice and a mother once," Ruth said. "The wife part, I can tell you things. The mother part, I can't say anything that will matter more than the first time you meet your child." Elena cried because the truth of that landed in her bones. At night, she opened a fresh notebook. She made lists. Birth plan, real. Birth plan, what I tell people. Money I actually have. Lawyer notes. Maya had answered her call with the sigh of someone who had been waiting on the other end of a thin rope. "I can get you a legal separation with temporary support," Maya said. "We can talk about the prenup. I know you signed it. I also know the document was built by a man who thought love was a risk to be managed. I don't want to fight," Elena said, meaning she didn't want to fight alone. "You won't," Maya said. "But Elena, the press will move on in 2 days. Your mother-in-law will not. Vivian wields power the way I wield citations. She will try to intimidate you. She'll be careful, always careful. I've seen the NDAs with her perfume still on them." "Do you think Adrian knew?" Elena asked. She wanted to be angry without erasing everything good. She wanted to not want him. "I think he forgot the difference between control and love. That doesn't mean he can't learn it," Maya said. "But learning is a verb." After their call, Elena opened the banking app and scrolled transactions she never cared to pass before. Valiant-related debits, family trust disbursements, a wire transfer to an entity called Mercer Care, LLC. Her breath snagged. She Googled with Ruth's slow computer. Sloane Mercer. Mercer Care was a non-profit registered last summer, 48 hours after a photo of Sloane leaving a children's hospital went viral. Elena rubbed her temple. Was Mercer Care a charity? A shell company? A door? Hidden truths weren't always devastating. Sometimes they were stares out of a room you thought was sealed. At the bakery, a woman rang up her coffee and offered a napkin with a quote written in blue ink. Sometimes the only way out is through. Elena tucked it into her notebook as if it were a prescription. One evening, the ferry horn sounded low and the air iced. Elena's phone vibrated with a number tagged unknown. She didn't pick up. It rang again, persistent, then stopped. A text followed, a single line. "I have something you should see. It's about Vivian." Sloane. Elena stared until the letters blurred. She didn't reply. She didn't block Sloane either. Choice, she noted, had its own temperature. Sloane's apartment was the kind that made minimalism look like contrition. She lay on the couch and pressed a cold rag to her eyes. Her brother Caleb slept in the second bedroom, his breath an argument with his lungs. Their parents had left when they should have stayed. Sloane learned early that grace often arrived as an invoice. She collected the documents like a penitent, the contract with Vivian's consulting firm, the emails full of pearled evasions, the text message that read like a threat and a gift. Play this well and everyone wins. Sloane had been 14 when she learned that everyone sometimes meant them. She packaged it on a thumb drive and wrote a letter with the kind of care that made her hand cramp. Elena, I owe you nothing you want from me, and everything you deserve from the truth. I was hired, coerced, by Vivian Grant to make it look like your husband is glamorous. I took the money because my brother is sick and because I didn't think of you as a person, only a variable. That's on me. Here are contracts, texts, emails. I am not absolved, but I am done being useful to someone else's calculation. Do with it what brings you peace. Sloane. She found Maya's office address on the non-profit's website. She FedExed the package for next day morning delivery. Then she called Adrian because old patterns still tugged. I sent Elena documentation. She needs to know. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for a week. Thank you. You can still be a good father, Sloane said. You can still be a better man than Vivian groomed you to be. He laughed and didn't mean to. Groomed. You were raised like an heirloom, Sloane said. Polished, displayed, protected from failing until failure grew teeth. Caleb coughed, a thin, frightening sound. Sloane put down the phone without ceremony. Adrian stared at the screen. The call ended and whispered thanks into his empty kitchen, as if the word could get anywhere without courage to carry it. Adrian arrived at his mother's house in a rainstorm that took itself seriously. Vivian's home overlooked the lake like a judgment. The walls held the heavy quiet of expensive art. "Is this an ambush?" Vivian asked as he stepped into her office. "It's a reckoning," he said, and set the printed emails on the mahogany desk. She skimmed, eyes as cool as a winter window. "We partnered with a cultural figure to enhance brand story. You paid a woman to be seen with your married son. You were complicit," Vivian said gently. "Rationally, if not legally. Tell me you didn't enjoy being desired." He wanted to slam the desk, to bruise the wood with his denial. He took a breath instead. "I enjoyed forgetting that I built a life where love is a calendar invite. I enjoyed forgetting things I shouldn't have. That ends now." Vivian sat back, lift of eyebrow like a curtain. "You think Elena will forgive you because you found a villain?" "I think I will become a man worth forgiving," he said. Vivian's smile was surgical. "The court of public opinion will move on by Tuesday. The court of family will not. Elena will cost you focus. Focus is money. Money is medicine for the people who rely on your company's drugs. You want to be a hero? Be the hero in the right story. I want to be a father who doesn't text his daughter at her graduation because he's on a plane to Davos," Adrian said, surprising even himself with the tense. Daughter. The word brightened a hallway in his mind. Vivian's eyes flickered just once. "Daughter? I don't know," he said. "I'll know when I'm there." He stood. "I'm stepping back from daily operations for a quarter. I'll take the board fallout. I'll pay the fee for breaching your little spectacle. I'm done outsourcing my soul." "You'll regret this," she said, voice low with a mother's curse, disguised as a blessing. "I regret missing the anatomy scan," he said. "I regret teaching Eleanor she had to manage me like a crisis. I regret believing love is PR. That's enough regret for one lifetime." He left and, for the first time since the restaurant, cried like rain had taken over his face. Men are always told to aim for the fix. Sometimes the fix is leaving the room you've always been praised for standing in. He called Maya. "Please, he said. "Tell her I want to meet. Anywhere she feels safe. No pressure. I'll leave if she looks at the door." Maya hesitated. "I'll ask. But you should know something. It will not be a forgiveness meeting. It might be a boundaries meeting." "Good," he said. "I finally learned the value of a boundary." They met at the bookstore because stories can sometimes translate languages people forget they speak. Elena sat at a small table by the window. The rain wrote a letter on the glass. She wore a grey sweater, her hair up like it had been the night they chose paint samples for the nursery. Adrian approached without theatre. He took off his coat like a man taking off armour. "Thank you for—" "Sit," she said. Her voice was soft, which was worse than if she'd gone sharp. He sat. For a moment, they just looked. His face was thinner. Her eyes had a steadiness he didn't remember. She'd found a different kind of strength, the kind you don't get from winning. He waited. "Why?" she asked finally. The shorter version is, "I built a life where wanting felt dangerous, so I wanted small, pre-approved things until I mistook relief for love. The longer version involves my mother and a contract, and my own laziness in the face of temptation." He looked at his hands. "I betrayed you. Not just with a kiss, with months of forgetting that you are not a variable in my life." Elena nodded slowly. "I got Sloane's package. I didn't know she sent it until after," he said. "I confronted my mother. I'm stepping back from Valiant." Her eyebrows lifted. "That's not a gesture that buys me back. That's your life." "It's a beginning," he said. "For me." "And for me?" she asked. "That's not mine to declare." She watched him as if he were both a stranger and a person she used to love. "I made a list," she said, pulling a folded paper from her notebook. "Boundaries. You see the baby when we set times. No surprise visits. No PR around our child. You will not allow your mother near me without my consent." "Yes," he said. "You will attend counseling, not just couples. Personal. With a therapist who doesn't care about your board resume. Yes, and you will donate anonymously to the trial fund that saved Sloane's brother. No plaque. No press." He swallowed a noise that might have been pride trying to rebrand itself. "Yes, and if you ever kiss someone who isn't me again, I don't want a letter. I want a notarized signature on divorce papers and silence." He looked at her. "Yes." It was the easiest yes he'd said in months. They talked, slow and civil, as book club ladies drifted by in rain boots. They made a schedule like divorced people, compassionate and precise. When they stood to leave, Elena pressed her hand to her belly and winced. "Is it?" he began, panic a living thing in his throat. "Just a Braxton Hicks," she said, breath loosening. "Practice contractions. The body rehearses." "Good," he said. "Practice is good." She almost smiled. "Not always." He held the door. She walked through it, not looking back. He didn't follow. Progress, it turns out, can be as quiet as someone letting someone else go first. Vivian did what Vivian does. She filed a petition for grandparent visitation rights, framing herself as protector of a child whose mother had absconded under mental distress. She never used dirty words. She used clean ones in dirty ways. Maya's voice shook with rage as she briefed Elena. "She's coming after you with a smile and a safety pin." "I don't want a court fight," Elena said. "You might not have a choice if we want to establish boundaries with teeth," Maya said. "The good news, Sloane's documents, plus your letter, plus the timeline of harassment we can now document. Vivian's petition will look like what it is." "What is it?" Elena asked, though she knew. "Control dressed as care," Maya said. "They prepared, they filed their own motions, and they bought more legal pads than bread." Ruth left a plate of oatmeal cookies on the stoop and a note. "You're not awful for being fearful. You're brave for being here anyway. Elena pinned it to the fridge. Courtrooms are poorly designed for heartbreak. The wood is too polished for despair. Vivian arrived in a dove-grey suit that suggested she'd gentrified remorse. Adrian sat behind Elena, not beside, at her request. Sloane entered in a plain dress and spoke with a steadiness born of too many advertisements. She recounted the contract, the pressure, the particular phrasing, for broader engagement prior to regulatory milestones. The judge, a woman whose hair had given up on vanity in favor of clarity, listened. When it was Eleanor's turn, she stood and told a story that avoided spectacle. I left because I needed to feel safe, she said. I left because I was tired of being managed. I left because my baby kicked as if to say, I deserve better than a parent who bargains with her worth. The judge asked practical questions. Where was she living? Who was her doctor? How soon was she due? Elena answered like a woman who built a crate from splinters. Maya presented Sloane's package. The judge took her time. She returned with a ruling that declined Vivian's petition without prejudice and cautioned both parties to avoid weaponizing care. She set a temporary order. Adrian would have scheduled prenatal support time and check-in calls. Vivian would have none. Outside, cameras gathered like birds who'd learned to eat from hands. Adrian leaned toward Elena. Careful. Thank you for letting me be there. She nodded. Thank you for not making it about you. Vivian exited the courthouse like weather. She looked at Eleanor with a smile that never touched her eyes. You're very good at casting yourself as sympathetic. I'm very good at telling the truth, Elena said. Vivian's mouth curved delicately. Truth is a brand like any other. Eleanor didn't answer. She turned away, pressing her palm to her belly. The baby rolled as if repositioning for a better exit strategy. Labor began at 3:24 a.m., the hour when even the bravest thoughts feel weak. Elena's water broke with a rush that startled the cat she had not adopted, but who had adopted the carriage house steps. She called Dr. Cole, then Maya. Both arrived with bags that had been packed for weeks in different ways. They drove to Swedish Medical in a Subaru that smelled like books and lemon gum. Ruth followed in a rattling pickup with a thermos of broth, because she believed in broth the way teenagers believe in forever. The contractions were dignified at first, polite knocks. Then they arrived like decisions that could not be moved to Friday. Elena breathed the way she'd learned in a room with mats. She said a few words Adrian would have paid not to hear. When the nurse asked if there was a father to call, Eleanor stared at the ceiling where someone had mercy-painted clouds. Maya looked at her. Do you want him? Elena hesitated for one contraction and half a memory. Yes. Maya texted Adrian a single line. It's time. She says yes. He drove like the police were after his old life. He washed his hands like penance. He asked the nurse where to stand, and then stood in a place that didn't claim too much. He whispered nonsense encouragements, and then good ones. He watched Elena labor and understood for the first time the arrogance of imagining he was the center of any room. At 11:11 a.m., a perfect wrong-timed wish, their daughter arrived. She was slick and loud and more beautiful than anything he'd ever taken credit for. Elena cried in a stupor of relief. Adrian did too, because nothing else made sense. Dr. Cole placed the baby on Elena's chest, and a sound rose in the room that had nothing to do with monitors. It was the sound of a story choosing its next chapter. I thought, boy, Adrian said, shaky and awed. Elena kissed their daughter's damp head. She thought, girl, she said. Hello, Adrian whispered, marveling that the word could be both new and ancient. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He counted fingers like gratitude was math. They named her Avery because it felt steady. Adrian stepped back as the nurse checked vitals. Elena slept with the sloped face of a person who had earned it. In the hallway, he found Maya. "Thank you," he said. "Don't thank me," she said. "Do the work. Show up. Keep showing up." He nodded. He'd already scheduled a therapist, sent an anonymous donation to the trial fund, and drafted a resignation from his mother's advisory circle. These were beginnings, not apologies. Vivian texted a photo frame with the words, "Grandchildren complete us, already in it." Adrian deleted the message and put his phone in a locker. He walked back into the room, where Avery had opened one eye as if evaluating him. "Hi," he said. "I'm going to get this wrong many times, but I'm here." Elena watched him. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't crying. She was doing the quiet arithmetic of a mother who now solved problems by first deciding who to invite to the table. "We'll take it slow," she said. "Yes," he said. "Slow is good. Slow is earned." He nodded. "I'll earn it." The baby hiccuped with authority. Elena laughed, a small silver sound in a room sterile with purpose. Sometimes redemption looks like confetti. Sometimes it looks like someone washing a dish without being asked. By spring, the carriage house had nettles in the yard, which Ruth insisted meant everything was healthy. Elena built a life calibrated to the rhythms of a newborn and a woman who had once believed love is something you keep quiet, so it stays. She took long walks with Avery strapped to her chest and learned the names of birds. She returned to her non-profit part-time. They welcomed her back as if she were a good idea rediscovered. At the office, a young colleague confessed she was leaving a controlling boyfriend. "You helped me see it," the woman said, surprised. "You didn't know." "But you did." Adrian rented a small house 10 minutes away. Not to hover, not to stage a performance, but to be local to the life he wanted to belong to. He arrived for scheduled visits with a diaper bag that actually had diapers, and a baby carrier he'd practiced with a bag of flour until the YouTube algorithm cried. He attended therapy and sometimes left with red eyes and shaky hands. He told the board he was not returning fully. He would serve as chair only, with limited authority, effective immediately. They fussed. He stayed firm. Sloane visited once, on a day as soft as laundry. She brought a tiny knit hat in a white paper bag. "I'm not staying," she said at the door, eyes wet. I wanted to say, I hope she never has to forgive anyone for what they were paid to do. Elena squeezed her hand. "I hope your brother gets well." "He will," Sloane said, daring hope to overstep. "Or he won't. Either way, we'll love him loudly." Vivian sent a typed letter on thick stationery, its apology lawyered within an inch of its life. Elena didn't respond. Some apologies you don't accept, not because you're cruel, but because you've learned not to invite a wolf to the fence line. When Avery turned 6 months, they painted a small nursery in Elena's duplex, Gentle Wheat winning by 1 vote. They hung a paper moon. Elena and Adrian stood in the doorway, like tourists in a life they weren't sure they could afford. Elena reached for his hand and didn't take it. She let the moment breathe. "Thank you for buying the cheap paint," she said. "It's not cheap," he said. "It's modest." He grinned at himself. "I'm learning." She smiled, a real one, soft as weather. "We both are." Outside, Port Townsend exhaled the salt of patient things. Boats, old piers, people who've buried versions of themselves and gone on to make dinner. Inside, Avery gurgled, unimpressed by plots and adults. Elena kissed her daughter's head and thought of that January night, the chandelier, the maitre d's eyes, the cold air kissing her face. She had walked out of a room and into another. She had left a letter and found a voice. She had not forgiven because the story demanded it. She had forgiven where it served the child she loved and the woman she was becoming, and that finally was enough. If you stayed with Elena's story, you already know. Some endings aren't clean. They're honest. Betrayal, power, love, and truth can live in the same room and teach us how to breathe again. Elena didn't return to the life she had. She built the one she needed. Slowly, carefully, with boundaries that protect what matters. Adrian's redemption wasn't a grand gesture. It was showing up, listening, and doing the unglamorous work of change. And for Avery, the smallest person held the biggest lesson. We become the family we practice being. If this story moved you, I'd love for you to keep this community going. Please like the video, share it with someone who might need it tonight, and subscribe for more deeply human, slow-burn dramas.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.